Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be discussing a term that's really popular and used everywhere of endgame players. So everybody has heard it, well, most of the people have used it. It's wildly kind of like seen all over the forums, all over the comment sections. People use the term endgame player when they're referring to content that's an endgame content, or they refer to a player's account that's an endgame player account, and so on and so forth basically. But so many people use this term of an endgame player, but there is no commonly kind of like joint understanding what it is. At the very least, the definition is very kind of like by each person who uses, and you never know whether when I say, let's say, endgame player, when somebody listens to it, they understand it as the same thing, because there is no set definition. Kabam has not clarified what would they refer to as an endgame player. Neither has any other kind of figure of authority. Therefore, endgame player can effectively kind of mean relatively pretty much everything that, or anything that you want it to mean. And obviously there are some common ideas in everybody's head, whether they're referring to relative novice or a new starter, or somebody who has played this game for a while. But then again, you have these casual type of players who like to refer to themselves as mid-tier players, at which point you become an endgame player from a mid-tier player. And there are always these lines, and they are blurry as hell at the moment. And currently, I do not think that there is like a very good set in line definition. What would you call an endgame player? There are some things that people refer to and people like to kind of like refer to when it comes to describing the level of their play, but all of them are subjective, and there are quite a lot of exceptions to that. Right, and again, everything I say in this video obviously reflects my opinion. I'm in no way, shape, form, or position authorized to now officially declare that this is going to be the idea and term of endgame player, or this is how we're going to define it. But I will offer you my personal idea of at who I would look as an endgame player and why I do so. So take everything I say in this video with a grain of salt, obviously, and this is my opinion and my understanding of the term, which I have been asked for multiple times, which is mainly the reason why I'm making this video, because this is actually coming up more so than one would imagine. Either way, so the commonly most kind of like referred to ideas to measure level of your player, level of your account, would be starting with the roster size. So when you take a look at your total base hero rating, typically that is somewhat decent indicator to how invested you are in the game. But again, it's not exclusively correct version or idea how to value somebody's level of play. Mainly kind of because there are plenty of people who do not rank their 3 stars, who do not rank their 4 stars, who do not rank their 2 stars, who don't rank any 5 stars they do not intend to use, and their hero rating is deceivingly low. Like in the same alliance, you can see players that have near 3. Like we can take a look at our alliance, and like we can that's not alliance, that's Masteries. But you can take a look at our alliance, and it's safe to assume anybody in NY718 would be considered an endgame player, right? And we have people whose hero base rating is 2.3 million. We have 3 million. Congratulations to Thekiryu Sean for becoming the first player with 3 million rating, I believe, as well. So that's cool, just noticed. But at the same time, we have people with like 1.5, 1.4, so half-sized accounts to the one of the bigger one in our alliance. Now, just because your account is half the size of somebody else's account, according to hero base rating, does not mean your account is worse, or does not mean you're not an endgame player, right? Because clearly everybody in this alliance treat the game seriously. So that is not an objective kind of like variable to look at. And that is important to keep in mind, because there are always reasons why certain people have higher accounts and certain people have lower accounts, whether it comes to spending, whether it comes to ranking all of your heroes as much as possible, or whether it comes to taking it easy and only ranking the ones that you need. So just looking at the total base hero rating does not give you an accurate representation of somebody's skill level, account level, or investment in the game. And then there is obviously the issue of prestige, right? because quite predominant kind of like requirement, especially when you move towards the end kind of like side of the game, is Champion's Prestige. So if your account has high enough prestige, you can get in high enough alliance, and that is important requirement to gain access to highly rated alliances, you would say. But again, prestige only takes in consideration 5 of your champions. So technically, somebody who has 5 rank 5s, even though somebody else has 30 rank 5s, can achieve same or higher prestige depending on how they ranked and what they prioritized. So looking at prestige, again, is not an accurate representation of kind of like the status of your game. You might be somebody who just ranked up, yes, you're 5th or 8th rank 5 champion, and you are kind of like trying to make a jump for like higher tiered alliances, versus against somebody who has been there all along, who has 5 times the account size, experience, and ability than you do currently. So just looking at prestige, also it does kind of like help you to gauge the investment, I guess, of the players, but it does not give you an accurate representation, because accounts with smaller prestige can be vastly superior to accounts with higher prestige if the person who is chasing prestige is kind of making alternative choices willingly to try and climb the game faster, right? And that does not only reflect the top of the game, it can be also somewhere lower in the mid tiers. Somebody with vastly smaller account can have higher prestige if he cares about prestige and the other person doesn't. Therefore, it can never be a reliable or trustworthy source of somebody's level of game, if you will, or if you want. So again, that in itself is not an accurate kind of like idea how to measure, and you cannot drive a line there. Anybody about 10k is an endgame player. No, that's simply not accurate, because it only measures a very small portion of your account. And lastly, people might want to look at your particular alliance and how you rank in AQ and how you rank in AW, and that kind of determines your self-worth on your ladder of the end game, right? But again, it's not exactly accurate, because this game has been out for such a long time, and it's a fairly common practice for many of the top players or more experienced players just to take a step back for a month or two for private reasons, or just feeling burnt out from the game, and either stop doing AW for a month or two, and they find an alliance somewhere lower who doesn't take AW seriously. Or if you're going to be busy and you're not going to have time to log in for a queue, you just step down and chill with some lower alliance. So valuing one person's level of game, if you will, you cannot solely do that by the alliance that they are in and how they place either, because that might be a temporary solution, that might be somebody taking a break, or any other multitude of reasons. So that would also not give you an accurate idea. And as far as I'm concerned, there is also kind of like one serious, proper level of valuation of person's investment and level of their game, and that constantly gets updated, and that is a simple idea of where is your permanent account, permanent content status at. So to put it in short, in my terms, and here is gonna be kind of like the main cliff note, an endgame player in my eyes is a player that has completed all of the permanent content in the game, with possible exception of whoever was released latest. That's about it. Like, if you're taking it slow and if you're working at your own pace, and maybe it can take you a month or two, but you have done 6.1, 6.2, all the variants, maybe aside from 4, then in my eyes, you're an endgame player. It's quite simple as that. Because that typically also reflects the mentality of people who want to push, who want to clear this content, who has the ability to clear this content. Because at this point, we can all agree that 6.2 is dang hard, or that 6.3 is also a fairly big challenge. The variant 1 is tricky, much more so than variants 2, 3, and 4. And if you have completed all of that, or you are working your way through that, then in my opinion, you're an endgame player. You're not an endgame player if you have done one completion, maybe 6.1, 100%, one completion of 6.2, one completion 6.3, maybe done 1 or 2 variants and leave the hardest ones outside. No, in my opinion, endgame player takes a piece of content and finishes a piece of content. He might do it at different kind of like varied speeds or whatever, but typically in my head, what characterizes an endgame player is that ability, that relentlessness, and that will to clear the game at the highest level. It's literally as simple as that. You might think that 6.2 is stupid and it's hard and it's cash grab, but if you're an endgame player, still gonna clear it. Not gonna throw in foul because Kabam made a nasty piece of content and you don't think it's fair. If you have that kind of attitude, which is perfectly fine, but then that does not mean that you're as heavily invested as the endgame players, and that kind of lands you back in the middle of the bracket when it comes to investment. You might be at the higher side of the middle tier or whatever, but an endgame player, in my opinion, goes and clears content and keeps up to date with the content and has cleared pretty much all of the content available, maybe aside from the last 1 or 2 quests that come out due to whatever preferred clearing speed, want to farm units, want to save up units, or have been busy, does not matter. But if you have cleared basically all of the new content that comes out within 3-4 months, even if it's tricky, even if it's cash grabby, even if it's difficult to do, then you're an endgame player. To anybody who disagrees with my characterization of an endgame player, now keep in mind that that's just my opinion, and quite often people ask me, who do I view as an endgame player? So here's an answer. It's very simple. Forget the prestige stuff, right? Because you might not necessarily have cared about Alliance prestige and you haven't enjoyed Alliance quest, but you still have great roster with great content clearing potential. Forget your roster size, because you might not want to rank up your champions, or you might, who knows, but that does not reflect it accurately. Forget the AW or AQ rankings, because you might be taking a break, or again, you might not care about those game modes. But all of the permanent content is, in my opinion, what matters, because if you have cleared 6.2 and 6.3 and all of the variants, then as minimum you're probably gonna have 10 plus rank 5 5-star champions, because you get one from each variant, you get some tier 5Bs in the Act 6, so on and so forth. At the same time, you will certainly have the capability of clearing the content, because it's a difficult piece of content, and therefore by default you will have a good roster. That makes sense. Or you're going to be insanely skilled. Either way, that in my eyes make you an endgame player. And also, lastly but not least important, is the fact that you are willing to tackle on challenges and you conduct yourself as an endgame player. Because there's nothing wrong in saying this content's too hard for me, I can't be bothered, or I don't want to clear it. But at the same time, I don't think you should be able to walk around saying, as an endgame player, this was too hard for me. No, maybe it is right now, but that's the whole point of kind of pushing and clearing a piece of content, despite them being hard. So this might upset some people who did not want to clear 6.2 and 6.3, and again, it might not necessarily mean that you're not an endgame player. There are always exceptions to any kind of like definition, but when it comes to me, myself, and I, that is how I define an endgame player, and that is quite simply your ability and willingness to clear difficult content and how up to date you are with it. So if you have done 6.1, 6.2, and let's say all of the variants, then you're an endgame player. If you think variant 1 is too toughy for you, then you're probably not an endgame player. Okay, obviously, again, there are exceptions. If you're waiting to improve on specific class, for instance, if you just don't have the Mystic or Tech champions, but you have cleared everything else around there and you're just waiting for something, then fair enough. But either way, that will put an end to this video. Now I have hopefully made my opinion as clear as possible as to who I count as an endgame player. But in case I didn't, I'll quickly recap it. Forget your roster size, forget your prestige, forget your AQ or AW placement, and look at the finished content section. Look at all of the permanent content. How you done Labyrinth of Legends, how you done all the variants, how you done Act 6. If answer to almost all of that is yes, then yes, you are an endgame player. If your answer to no, Labyrinth is stupid, rewards are not worth it anymore, and variants, I don't have a great champions for it, or I'm missing that, or I'm missing this, and 6.2 is stupid in general, or if you start at any point giving some sort of excuses why content is stupid and you will not want to do it, probably not endgame player. Again, I'm gonna say probably, but I'm sure I'm gonna get slaughtered in comment section regardless. So that's pretty much it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope this has at least somewhat made things more clear, at least about my stance and my viewpoint. And if you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.